Out on a quiet country road in Iowa, there's a farmhouse that at first glance, looks pretty ordinary. But this house, was built during the American Civil War, and hidden somewhere inside its walls is this incredible story about an inventor, a family tragedy, and a fortune that to this day has never been found. So let's get into the secrets of this really unique home. Here it is, built way back in 1862. It's one of the oldest buildings still standing in Central City, Iowa. But it's not just its age that makes it so special, it's the shape. I mean, look at it. It's a hexagon, a six-sided house. That's a real architectural curveball for the prairie, especially during the Civil War, and that unique shape. It wasn't just for looks, not at all. Family legend says the builder used its strange geometry to hide his life savings inside the walls, a fortune that's still missing. But to really understand the house's secret, we've got to go back, way back, to the land it was built on. Yeah, before there was a house or a farm or even a state of Iowa, there was just ice. The story of this place really begins thousands and thousands of years before any pioneer showed. So try to picture this. About 13,000 years ago, a massive glacier, the Des Moines Lobe, was just plowing through this area. As it melted back, it carved out the Wapsipinicon River Valley and left this gentle slope of land that came to be known as the Maine Ridge. And that's the exact spot where our hexagon house would one day stand. The river itself gets its name from the Meskwaki people who lived on this land for centuries. And there are two really cool stories about where the name comes from. One is this tragic love story about two lovers, Wapsi and Pinicon, who drowned in the river. The other may be a bit more practical, combines the words for swan and a type of potato like tuber that grew along the banks. Either way, you can tell the history here runs deep. And this quote just perfectly captures what the first American settlers saw when they got here. Chandler Jordan, who arrived in 1844, described this massive sea of prairie grass. It was this wild, untouched landscape that became the canvas for our story's main character and his very strange vision. So who was this guy who built such a weird house in the middle of this vast prairie? Well, he wasn't your typical farmer, that's for sure. He was an inventor, an engineer, a guy who thought in angles and gears. Benjamin Franklin Morrison was born back in 1813 in New Hampshire. He didn't go into farming. Instead, he became a machinist and a locomotive engineer. After his first wife passed away, he married a widow, Laura Hatch, over in Illinois. Then, around 1860, they decided to head west and ended up buying 200 acres right on Iowa's Maine Ridge. Look at this. This landowner map from 1869 gives us the hard evidence. Just 7 years after the house was built, it clearly lists F. Morrison as the owner of this exact piece of land. It's the smoking gun that connects the man to the house and its incredible story. You see, Morrison didn't just build a place to live. He engineered a puzzle. It was a structure born from a pretty radical architectural movement and, maybe more importantly, a really deep distrust of banks. So why the unusual shape? Well, Morrison was probably influenced by this thing called the octagon house movement. The idea was that eight-sided homes were healthier. They got more light and air and used space better. But Morrison, being an inventor, took this already eccentric idea and went even further, creating an even rarer six-sided design. He actually had the money to build it because of a strange twist of history. While the Civil War was tearing the country apart, it created a huge economic boom for Iowa farmers who were supplying the Union Army. These high prices of war times, as one history puts it, is what gave Morrison the cash to build his dream house. The outside of the house really hints at what's going on inside. The hexagonal design creates all these odd angles and weird triangular spaces that you just don't get in a normal boxy house. Spaces that are just perfect for hiding things. Okay, so this is the real heart of the story. According to 5 generations of family history, Morrison had lived through the banking panic of 1857, where people lost everything. He just didn't trust banks, so he took all the money he made during the Civil War and, using his skills as a machinist, hid the cash somewhere inside the very house he designed. But the story doesn't end with Morrison after a personal tragedy. He left Iowa for good, and the house, along with its secret, was passed on to other people for more than 100 years. So in 1879, after his wife Laura died, a heartbroken Morrison sold the farm to her sons, the Hatch family, and he moved back to New Hampshire. The Hatches owned the place for decades, and then around 1952, the Beauregard family bought it, and they lived there for 60 years, all the way until 2014. What's amazing is that someone has always been living in this house, and again, the historical records back all this up. The 1869 map clearly shows Morrison as the owner, but by the time you get to the 1895 map, it lists Fred Hatch. The house and its secret had been passed to a new family. All of which brings us right back to the central mystery. We're talking over 160 years, multiple families, countless renovations, and yet that big question is still hanging in the air. I mean, just think about this. The house has never been abandoned. Not once. It's had a new basement, put in new siding, all sorts of renovations over the years. And through all of those changes and all those generations of people living there, no one has ever come forward and said they found the hidden Civil War fortune. You know, this story is so much more than just a treasure hunt. It's a peek into the mind of a 19th century inventor in that classic pioneer spirit of just relying on yourself. It really speaks to a time of massive uncertainty, when trusting your own two hands felt a whole lot safer than trusting any institution. The legend has been passed down, surviving renovations in new families, becoming as much a part of the house as its own foundation. So it leaves us with this one final, really tantalizing thought. In a house designed by an inventor, a house full of weird angles and hidden spaces, where does a machinist hide his treasure? Standard real estate is just a list of facts. The property narrative is an investigation. We're digging through the archives to find the vintage photos, the headlines, and the history that Zillow can't touch. Why settle for a basic listing when you can have a full provenance dossier? It's high trust, high value, and 100% verified. Give your property the story it deserves. Unlock the archives at thepropertynarrative.com.